Hey guys, hope you're all doing really well. I've had the opportunity now to shoot with the GFX100S for just over 3 months, and I wanted to share with you guys my thoughts so far using this camera, what I like about this camera, what I don't like so much, and how it fits into my camera bag overall, and also why I decided to pick one up in the first place. I had been curious about the GFX system for quite some time, and given that the successor to this camera was just released, the price dropped quite a lot on this camera body, and I managed to pick one up for quite a good deal. So that was a lot of the reason why I decided to pick this camera up and try it out. I also ended up getting 2 lenses. First off, I started with the 55 1.7, which is a standard focal length, and it has a really beautiful shallow depth of field of 1.7 on that medium format sensor. I also have the 32 to 64 f4, which is a standard zoom. I think the full frame equivalent is around 25 to 50. Don't quote me on that. One of the things I love the most is the color straight out of camera. It has beautiful skin tones and the dynamic range is insane. I actually use the DR400 setting, which raises the ISO but gives you more dynamic range overall, even when you're shooting raw. The other reason I really like this camera so far is the body design and the handling. Yes, it is a larger system overall, body and lenses included. It's much larger than my X-T5 and the lenses I have for that. It's just much more substantial, much easier to grip onto, and I love the design overall. I love the large LCD screen, as well as the viewfinder, which is bigger than the one on the X-T5. When it comes to shooting portraits, I love how easy it is to get beautiful out of focus backgrounds with the medium format sensor. Even with a lens that only opens up to f4, I can get beautiful separation and lovely bokeh. This look isn't entirely necessary for taking photos of people, fashion campaigns, things like that, but when you do want to create that look, it's quite easy to do it with this camera. The resolution, the flexibility, the amount that you can crop your images if you need to with this 100 megapixel sensor is amazing. Although it does have some drawbacks, which we'll talk about in a second. I would say that I've mainly been shooting with the 32 to 64, sort of like a do everything lens, and I really love how sharp it is and how fast to focus it is. The 55 1.7 is definitely a lens that I'm not using as much. However, I absolutely love the look of the images that you can get out of this lens, and it is crazy, crazy sharp. Given that it is a 100 megapixel sensor and the fact that it also shoots 16-bit raw images, the file sizes coming out of this camera are extremely large. From what I've seen so far, they're around 100 megabytes each, which has caused me to change my shooting style quite a bit. The fire rate and the speed of the camera and the interface overall does feel a little slower when I compare it to the X-T5. And I have noticed with the larger shoots, larger Lightroom catalogs, it has been slowing down my computer a little bit more. So it's taking a little longer to load previews and make adjustments in Lightroom. Obviously, in faster paced environments, I do like a quicker shooting experience, and I guess that's a good reason to keep the X-T5 around, given that that camera has low resolution and it's just much snappier, much faster. So in order to mitigate this problem, I have been using an app called Narrative Select, which simply enables you to cull down your photo shoot, essentially pick all of the best photos from all the photos that you shot on the shoot and only import those into Lightroom. It makes a big difference when you have less photos in the Lightroom catalog overall, at least that's my experience. And on top of that, Narrative allows you just to flick really quickly through the previews, and it also gives you a 100% crop of the person's face if there is a person in the image, just to double check that it's in focus. So that has cut down so much time for me, not just with the 100S, but with any camera that I use. And it's also free, which is awesome, and I've left a link down in the description below if you guys want to check it out. I've also noticed that there is quite a big difference in the autofocus performance between lenses. I've only got 2 lenses for this camera, but the 55 and the 32 to 64 are completely different. The 55 being a newer lens, I would have thought would have had better autofocus performance, but it is a little slower and it hunts around a little bit more. The 32 to 64, I would really compare it to any of the lenses for the APS-C Fuji system. Very snappy, very accurate, and it doesn't hunt around very much. So that kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I've been shooting with Sony and Canon in the past, and they have a very good consistency with their lenses. There's not much variability between the speed and performance of their lenses like there is with Fuji. This camera also does shoot some beautiful video files. However, I don't use it for that because I have the Sony ZV-E1, which is basically my dream camera when it comes to video. I'm filming on it right now. I love the quality coming out of this camera. I love the lens selection, and I love being able to stabilize my footage in post. The IBIS on the 100S, in my opinion, is not so great. There's some warpiness and wobbling, especially on the corners of the frame. I'm a real perfectionist when it comes to video, so I don't see myself moving on from the ZV-E1 anytime soon. The build quality of this camera is amazing. It feels really solid and sturdy in your hand. It is quite weighty, but I think that when you turn up to a professional photo shoot with this camera in your hand, you look quite serious, which is not always a bad thing. One other thing that I've noticed that I didn't quite expect was the fact that I really like the aspect ratio of this camera. It shoots a 4:3 image versus a 3:2 image that most full frame cameras shoot. Maybe it's the fact that I've been shooting a lot more medium format film, which is much closer to this aspect ratio, but I've just really enjoyed composing with the 4:3 image. I've really been enjoying what I've been able to create with this camera, and I think that is the bottom line. If you enjoy what you're creating, if you like what you're able to make with the camera, and it doesn't give you too much hassles in the process, then I think you're on the right track. And for me, in the past 3 months, I've been able to create some work that I'm really, really proud of. I've been creating a lot of photo shoots recently that have more of an idea and a direction behind them, where I'm really taking my time to get the frame, the pose, and the feeling of the photo exactly right. And that's a lot of the reason why I've been shooting so much film recently. But for those projects where I'm here at home and I'm able to take my time, then I love using the GFX100S. Would I take it with me on long trips or traveling overseas? Probably not. So that's where the X-T5 is going to come in. I've been using that camera so much since I picked it up last year, and it's definitely going to stay as my main travel camera. I'll definitely check in later on down the track with the 100S and let you guys know how I feel about it long term. But until then, I'm excited to go out and create more projects with this camera. No doubt you'll see some of those coming up on the channel, so stay tuned. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.